We are on page 134. Let's get into one of those situations where if you find yourself in it, I'm going to be impressed. You drank a glass of water. After you finish drinking a glass of water, you're supposed to make an after blessing. Which after blessing? Borei nefashot. The after blessing of Borei nefashot or Bot v'chesonah. But before you made Borei nefashot, you went to the bathroom. Now you come out of the bathroom and you wash your hands. Which blessing do you make first? Asher Yitzal, on going to the bathroom, or Borei nefashot, on the drinking of the glass of water.
Bathroom comes first.
Drink a little bit more and say...
Yeah, that's a way out, that's true. That's what I've done.
No, that would happen more if you eat bread. Now you have such a long blessing, there would be a reason why you want to go to the toilet first.
The next halakha is about eating bread.
Bread off a shelf, though, say and then go to the toilet.
What if you forget?
No, now you're talking about after going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Now which one do you say first? Let's look inside. Misha achal, somebody who ate. Davar, food, something. Shetzarich levarech acharav, that you must make a blessing afterwards, bacha achona, and after blessing, of borei nefashot rabot. V'kodem shivarech, and before you make the blessing, yatzal and kavav, you go to the bathroom. So you didn't finish borei nefashot, you went to the bathroom instead. Yivarech tchila birkat asher yatzal. You first make the blessing of asher yatzal. V'achar kach yivarech borei nefashot rabot. And afterwards, you make a borei nefashot. Very good.
What's confusing there, I guess, is the action that you're saying a bracha for the second action first before the first action that you...
Was this because of Tadir V'Sheino Tadir?
Oh, so let's look at this footnote.
What is it?
Tadir V'Sheino Tadir.
It will explain right now. Because are we going to follow like what Zev's saying, the order of what it is that you... I mean, technically, if you're going by the order, what did you do first? You should do borei nefashot because you drank the water first. I mean, kind of, take your ticket, stand in line. Asher Yatzal, you got to wait for the borei nefashot.
Why did you say it on the way to the bathroom?
So that would obviously be what we would want you to do, but here, clearly, you didn't do it. This is now after the fact. You're now in the situation.
Also, you have a certain amount of time before you have to say that after anyway. Wow, what is how many minutes? Or
Well, it depends on what you eat and how you're eating.
With
And
bread, it's not that long. I mean, it was...
No, we're going to see that some... Well, this is the argument here. This is what we're going to argue about. It's a classic...
Had many of
Classic,
those.
but not classy, yes.
We've had several of those recently in class.
Look at the footnote Yud on the bottom. It's the bracket. You see the Yud? The bottom of 134?
Yes.
B'shelot v'tshuvot Maharshal. In the writings of the Maharshal. Questions and answers. Katav, he writes, who's the Maharshal? Rabbi Shlomo? Luria. Very good. Shlomo Luria. Katav, he wrote, Shebirchat asher yatzar kodemet levirchat borei nefashot. The blessing of asher yatzar takes precedence over the blessing of borei nefashot, meaning it comes first. The reason?
Which come first?
Asher yatzar. The bathroom blessing comes before the drinking blessing. Mipnei shehit tadira yoter. Because it is more common, like the one was saying. I'll explain exactly what that means. V'tadir v'sheino tadir kodem. And you have something that's more common and one that's less common, the one that's more common takes precedence. For example, if Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh fall out on the same day, What should you say first? Shabbat Shalom, and then have a good month, Rosh Chodesh?
Yes.
Or should you say Rosh Chodesh Tov, and then Shabbat Shalom?
The first one.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Why?
You say that every week. as
Right,
opposed to
Shabbat
every
happens every week. Rosh Chodesh happens once a month. So you always give precedence to that which is...
And in the tefillah with Yom Tov too, you say, Allah HaShabbat HaZeh Yom Tov.
Oh, very good, very good, very good. You see, that's exactly where you see
In
it.
the Torah reading, you read the Shabbat.
But for here, you see a very interesting musal. I've seen many times in families, I've seen couples argue when they have guests. When a wife feels that her husband, or a husband feels that her wife is giving more attention to the guests than they are to the people in the house. The children, the spouse. And they're right. Because human nature is to say that which is more rare is more valuable. I haven't seen them for a long time. You're going to be here tomorrow. But the truth is that which is more common is more valuable. It could be there are a number of reasons for it. In this case, you're going to have to put up with this person more than other people. So I know you want to impress them, but you're going to tomorrow morning have to face the consequences.
Then you're done.
But also, a der eretz. Yeah, been there, done that. Is that why they needed a fan for the sunroom? the derech eretz would say, also in general, that which is more common, those people that are always with you, they're always by your side, they should take precedence over other people. People you've known longer, there's a certain correctness in that. Here he's saying, normally a person says, that's the Marshal. A person says Asher Yatzar more often during the day, then he says Borei Nefashot Todot. A person makes the after blessing on the bathroom more than he makes the after blessing on foods, and therefore it should take precedence over the one on foods.
Really?
Then you're going to see that this is a good argument. So because some rabbis are going to say, says who? Do you know Jews?
Yeah.
Jews are eating all day long? And it could be that some of us are eating more than we're going to the bathroom. But let's wait till we get there. V'hagaon Ya'abetz. The Rabbi Ya'abetz. Ya'abetz is Rabbi Yaakov ben Tzvi. Rabbi Yaakov Emdin is his name. The Moruk Tzia, in his book Moruk Tzia, he argues on this answer of the Marshan. Demi Ya'amel, who's to say Shebirkat Asher Yatzar Tidira Yoter? Who's to say that the blessing on the bathroom is more common? V'adraba, quite to the contrary. Etel rov bnei Adam, by most people, Achila u'shtiyat dira yoter. People eat and drink more than they go to the bathroom. And so he would argue with the reasoning of the Mashal. We can leave it off here, we can keep reading.
Keep going.
Yeah?
Please.
We need the answer now.
You can vote.
The answer is, it's complicated. What, Barry?
You're 3 lines down from the other.
I'm at the, yeah. Umikol makom, but in any case, Shapir Psak HaRashal. Rabbi Shlomo Luria's Psak, his halachic ruling is good. Perhaps not for the reason that he gave, but for a different reason. Meaning that you should make the bathroom blessing before the drinking blessing. Lefi shemiyad achar hana'ato chal alav hachiyuv lehodot. Because by using the restroom, immediately once he's finished using the restroom, the obligation to praise Hashem starts.
Before washing the hands.
After washing the hands. Or you could say even before, but he can only do it once he washes his hands. But the after blessing on food, because you already finished drinking anyways. Anyways, you could wait a few more minutes to say it. Meaning you anyways waited. So wait a little bit more and fulfill the one that's more pressing, which is going to the bathroom.
That makes a lot more sense, right?
Ad kan tochen dvarav. This is what the Ya'abetz answers. The Ya'abetz says, I disagree with the Marshal's reasoning, but his ruling is still good for a different reason. וכסברתו כתב גם הגאון רבי חיים פלאג'י, Rabbi Chaim Pelagi from I believe he was from Izmir. Izmir is in Turkey?
Turkey.
Yes? I believe that's where he's from. Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, B'Sefer Ruach Chaim, in his book Ruach Chaim, writes, Shekvar, go to page 135, the left column. Shekvar hisiach dato v'hifsik mebracha achona, because he really interrupted after drinking to go to the bathroom. Umay dehava hava, it's already waiting, so he might as well continue waiting. Aval bekat asher yatzal dahavi smucha mamash, but the blessing of asher yatzal, you have the opportunity to say it immediately without waiting for anything. Yesh lahakdima lebracha achona, you should give it precedence to the after blessing of the drink, because at least you should say one of them in close proximity to doing it. Do you understand that? So they're agreeing with the ruling, but for a different reason. Uvasefer Matei Moshe. This Matei Moshe was the student of Rabbi Shlomo Luria, and so he obviously takes it personally that you're arguing with his rabbi. So he steps in and says, "Hey, Yabitz, slow down. You're arguing with my rabbi. I'm going to justify him." He's coming to back up the opinion of his rabbi, the Maharshal. Because the after blessing on foods, like liquids, burn vashot, it could be that a few days will pass, and you will never have said boren vashot. It could be that you will go through a few days without ever having said boren vashot. How? Oh, if you're in one long meal, like Achashverosh for 180 days, I hope not. Because you keep eating...
That's intervals, enough intervals.
That's Achashverosh.
Right, that would be the Achashverosh meal, but you don't stop eating, so you're never really...
Eat bread with every meal.
Oh, very good. This is what Barry's saying. I'm not taking away that this answer could happen. It could happen somebody really drinks the whole day long from the same, so he doesn't say whatever shot. But here, where Barry's answer is probably more realistic. Could be that people, kagon shachal v'shorev v'shdeb dochasuda. There's some people who have 3 meals a day with bread, and therefore they're never actually making blessings outside of their meal with bread. And once you make a blessing on the bread, you don't make any other blessings during the meal. And it could be that there go by a few days. Let's say it's a 3-day holiday. How much do you really eat outside of your meal? Shabbat and then 2-day holiday. How much does that happen? So says the Matei Moshe that his rabbi is correct. Asher Yatzal, regardless if you're in the middle of a meal or not, you're always making Asher Yatzal. So in there could be situations where even if you eat and drink a lot, you're still not making after blessings in the same consistency or the same quantity as you would be making blessings after the bathroom.
What he's really saying then is, if you're eating a suda and you go up to the bathroom, you have to make the bathroom blessing now, where you can wait on the food till later anyway.
So you're going to try to drag us out of Birkat HaMazon. Let's say the after blessing on right. So that's the next halacha. He's right. It's the next. So then, if this, so then what's the rule by then?
You could also do it if you were just eating nichya or even a Shaar Kollel.
Oh, so this.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to.
Oh, you're saying his reasoning applies to these cases as well. Okay, I agree.
Like if a person is eating, let's say, a bowl of rice, and he has to go pee. No, he'll not say his after bracha on the rice, go to the bathroom, say the after bracha, come back, and then say another bit Raymond and Mizonot, whatever he's going to say again. Because he's not finished.
Why does he have to say Bowen and Mizonot again?
Well, on rice.
He would just, but he already...
He only said Bowen and
No, he didn't. I mean, why should he have to say brain and
he wouldn't say a second Bowen and Mizonot.
No.
That's a bracha.
No, I'm saying no, he wouldn't if he was eating. Let's say he's eating dinner, he has rice, vegetables, something.
Yeah.
He'll make the
he'll make the blessing later anyway.
But he's not, if he has to go for a bathroom break, he's not going to say the after bracha on the food before he goes to the bathroom, if he's still going to eat more.
Okay, you're right. So, and this could be a situation in which this would apply again. Because anyways, he's going to wait till later to make that Bowen Vashon. Okay. There's another rabbi, Zachor L'Avram, who says the same logic. And in steps Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. V'adoni avi mori v'ribi, and my father, my master, my rabbi, my teacher, Maran, our master, Harishon L'Tzion, the chief rabbi of Israel, Shlita, may he live and be well. Now he's not alive anymore, but then he was writing this. Compare this to how people today call their dad. Dear Dad.
Pops.
Here, look at all these titles. Those are all blessings. It's a different world.
Listen up, boys.
Well, you start being Chacham Ovadia, you'll get more titles. B'Sefer Halichot Olam, in his book Halichot Olam, I have a set of Halichot Olam back there. Halichot Olam, it's 8 volumes maybe? 8, 9, I don't remember. That Chacham Ovadia wrote in his teenage years. When he was teaching a class on the writings of the Ben Ish Chai, and he was arguing with the Ben Ish Chai, so he wrote down all the reasons why he argued with the Ben Ish Chai. So very often there are novel halachic ideas from when he was very, very young.
Those are the set that was born.
These are the first set that got him in a lot of trouble. In the first volume, very many rabbis will not give him letters of approbation.
He was 17.
Alright, and in the second volume, he already writes in his introduction, you know what? I don't need you to give me letters of approbation. If you're not willing to argue with great rabbis, that means that you're not worthy of learning Torah. He went up against the chief rabbi of his time, 17 years old.
They didn't put him chayv.
They tried, sure. The Sephardic community did not accept Rabbi Ovadia Yosef for many, many years. He wasn't even allowed to pray in Sephardic synagogues. Can you believe that?
Where did they accept?
There was one synagogue in Nachlaot somewhere that they let him sit there as long as he didn't make too much trouble. And he didn't even have money to eat food, so there was some old lady would bring him every day a piece of cake and a glass of tea. Chacham Ovadia once told this story.
Was that Morocco?
No, in Israel.
Oh, yeah.
That's why the first job Chief Rabbi Chacham Ovadia got was to be the Chief Rabbi of Egypt. I'm assuming people wanted to get him very far away. Go there, disappear. He didn't. He came back and became like the Chief Rabbi of all the Sephardic Jews. It's an incredible thing that we have a sentence in Hallel, right? We say Hallel, King David says, Even Masu Habonim, the stone which the builders, that's not a nice stone to build with. Hayta Rosh Pina ended up becoming the cornerstone of the building. You know that Chacham, when Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was young and people were saying, oh, he's a foolish young man writing things he shouldn't be writing, he ended up becoming the cornerstone of Sephardic Jewry, but this time didn't come yet. And you see incredible things. Many tzaddikim like this, that in their youth, people scorned them or derided them, and then later on in their life, people realized them for who they were. And I'll tell you a nice story. There's a rabbi who used to live in Jerusalem. He was the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, actually. His name was Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank. Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank, there's a synagogue in Jerusalem next to my wife's parents' house. It's a very narrow building, but it looks like somebody sliced out a wall of the kotel. It has like a kotel stone. It's a very nice building. That was Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank's synagogue. Interesting enough, Rav Peretz has his own synagogue inside of that building. That's where Rav Peretz prays. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank was an Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Jerusalem. He was around the times of Rav Kook. Chacham Ovadia was a young man in those days. And Chacham Ovadia must have been only 16, 17 years old. He came into the room, and Rav Frank was sitting with a lot of rabbis around this table. Many other tzaddikim, rabbis, whatever they were. Some kind of meeting. Chacham Ovadia came in to ask Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank a question, and Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank stood up out of his chair for Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. And one of the rabbis around the table said a very derogatory line. He told Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank in Yiddish, he asked him, why are you standing up for this franc? A franc in Hebrew slang is a derogatory word used for Sfaradim. Anybody with dark skin, it's called frankim. Frank. It's still used in Israel today, unfortunately, especially in religious communities. And Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, that was his last name, but Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank told him back in Yiddish, he said, you know, one day, you're also going to have to stand up for this franc. That's what he told him. So, you know, right now you don't know who he is, but one day he's going to be so famous, you're going to have to get out of your chair too. What I see in that story, Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank was able to see beyond what the people around him were seeing. He already knew from a young age that this was going to be Chacham Ovadia. Other people weren't so sure. Another young guy. He didn't come from any famous rabbinic family. He didn't have any money to his name. Wasn't anybody special. And look, really, Chacham Ovadia perhaps left a footprint on world Jewry as a whole, but Sephardic Jewry for sure, that no other Sephardic rabbi has ever paralleled. Nobody. It could be, I'm saying this with a lot of hesitance, it could be that since Rabbi Yosef Karo, Sfaradim have not unanimously accepted one rabbi as they accepted Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. That means since the Spanish Inquisition until today, you haven't had one rabbi with that unanimous of a following. Other than in Breslov, many circles, they learn Chacham Ovadia, that's their rabbi. Yeah, they're in Breslov Hasidim who all study Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's books. It's an incredible thing. Yeah, he's there. When it comes to halakha, they follow him.
Even though all Haredi.
Yeah, right. There's a certain teaching in Rabbi Nachman's writings that the rabbi of the generation has to be the foremost halachic decider of the generation. And so it's not all the Breslovers, for sure not, but this certain stream within Breslov believe that it doesn't make a difference if he's Sephardic or Ashkenazi, and because Chacham Ovadia was unanimously the halachic rabbi of the generation, maybe not the Kabbalist or maybe not the Musar, but the halachic rabbi, that they must, when it comes to halachot, adhere to his rulings.
Even if he changed political life.
Sure.
Before him, religious people wasn't in politics.
Right? I mean, you should know this, by the way. I say this, but I'm not a student of Chacham Ovadia Yosef. We're learning one of his son's books. I own almost every book Chacham Ovadia wrote. I'm not a student of this. I didn't learn in his Bet Midrash. We disagree in our Bet Midrash on many of his teachings. But you cannot take away that he was unanimously the leader of Sephardic Jewry. He was the face. He's the image that pops up. And so on a political level, for sure. And some of us may struggle with those political things that he pushed for. But nonetheless, his mark is there. So what does Chacham Ovadia say in his book that he wrote when he was a teenager? He makes a note on the words of the Marshal. And just by the way. He was writing a book when he was a teenager. A person should never stop believing in themselves. When you believe in yourself, you're able to take yourself very far in life. The world around you, at its nature, doesn't want a person to be successful. You're taught from early age, there are other people that are smarter than you, other people who are better than you, other people who are more talented than you, other people who have more money than you, other people who are more famous than you, and it leads people to be very unproductive. Chacham Ovadia clearly ignored these teachings and ended up becoming somebody who nobody would have thought that he would have become. And every person has to take that message to heart. A second thing, perhaps you might see why we like studying halakha. Now, when you study any other discipline of Judaism, you're studying now Rabbeinu Avraham ben Aramba, you're exposed to only one road in Jewish philosophy. This is Rabbeinu Avraham's road. You study the writings of the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. You're exposed to one path of philosophy. You study the writings of the Tanya, and you'll notice you're exposed to one path. You study the writings of the Rabbi Nachman of Bras, one path. Every rabbi in there, one path. When you study the world of halakha, that's when you see all the paths are crisscrossing. This rabbi from here argues with this rabbi from there, and the other one from that country gives an answer for this rabbi. And you realize that Torah didn't stop anywhere. That dialogue of the Talmud is continued in every place in the world, in every generation, in every country, in every synagogue, in every town in the universe. There are people that are discussing the same thing we're talking about right now. And that's the Rabbi Nachman of Breslov actually writes this, one of the most beautiful things in the world. He said, he who truly wants Jewish unity, the words that have inspired me since I was in high school. Rabbi Nachman says, he who truly wants Jewish unity will focus his efforts on studying the words of halakha. Because halakha is the force which unites all of Judaism. And this is perhaps what he was referring to. It's the one place where there is no Sephardic, Ashkenazi, Hasidic, Yemenite, Kabbalistic, rationalist. Everything is just here. It's all part of the same picture. So Chacham Ovadia comments, he said perhaps perhaps instead of using the word more commonplace, you should use the word not frequent. Perhaps instead of using the term that it happens more frequently that you make asher yatzar than a b'lei nefashot, just that it's more common to make asher yatzar than b'lei nefashot. Because whereas going to the bathroom you always have to make an asher yatzar, not necessarily after food do you have to make a b'lei nefashot. Sometimes you'll be eating it in a meal, there's a difference in common and what other word I use?
For that activity, the bracha is more frequent.
Right, frequent. 100%. Right, that's what I mean. Exactly. I mean, for the activity to which it's done, this is more frequent than it is than making this blessing after food. Last time I had as many helicopters, 5 houses up the street, they busted 12 people for dealing drugs. This just 2 weeks ago. Erev Shabbat. Yeah, on this street.
Dealing drugs?
Yeah, something like that. Some big drug bust.
Who hit my car and
Uchein ma shekatav b'Shulchan Aruch, like what it's written in the book, The Roaring and the Lion. This was written by the Shagat Aruch. He has a book. They said that he was orange hair, orange beard, and when he got excited about Torah, it looked like he was a roaring lion, like you backed away from him. Linyan berkat hamazon u'sfirat ha'omer, regarding the blessing after a meal and sfirat ha'omer. Which one takes precedence? Do you first say berkat hamazon and then sfirat ha'omer, counting the omer? Or do you first count the omer and then say berkat hamazon?
Well, on Pesach night, you can say the bracha for the omer during the meal.
Right, even though we do it by Arvit, by the...
Yeah, but if you, for some reason you're not...
Right, you're not there.
You do it.
you should do Birkat Hamazon.
It's more common.
And also, it's time limited. You can't do Birkat Hamazon. You have more of the night. You can't do Birkat Hamazon all night.
I don't understand what he's saying. I'll tell you the truth. I would love to tell you that I understand what he's saying. The Havilei Tadir shel Matsui Lechudei Ve'en lo Kdima she'eno Tadir. Birkat Hamazon doesn't fall into the category of something which is more... שלום. היא פה? אז אמא. לא, אבל אולי היא לא תצא אם לא יודעת שאת פה. שנייה. אוקיי. תתקשרי אליי מהטלפון שלי. My wife's song? Can I, I'm sorry, just 1 10 seconds.
Was someone receiving text messages or was it my phone?
It's Amber Alert.
No, I heard that someone's beeping because I was
He's looking for it.
Well,
Cell phones. You have to update your application.
Thank you. This is a great question. What takes precedence? Kibbutz Avayim or learning Torah?
Kibbutz Avayim is 10 Commandments.
Interesting question. What I think he's trying to say is that Birkat Hamazon is not necessarily something which is more takes precedence because of its commonness, but because of the frequency in which it's said. I'd have to dig deeper into this, but let's wrap up what he's saying. That the reason is that we're making Asher Yatzar before B'lei Nefashot is just because it is more frequent or common, depending on the opinion you're going, than the blessing of B'lei Nefashot. Let's see the next halacha. What about the question of Birkat Hamazon?
Back at the top?
Back at the top of 135. What if the same situation happens? Achar she'achal v'sava. After a person ate and was satisfied, kodem Birkat Hamazon, but before he blessed Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, the main Birkat Hamazon. So he ate, he's satisfied, and before he says Birkat Hamazon, he goes to the restroom. It's interesting. Why does he say ate and satisfied, not just ate?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Time elapse?
No.
But you have to say Birkat Hamazon if you're not satisfied?
Oh. What does the Torah say? V'achalta, v'savata, v'rachta.
So you can
You
only
ate,
bless after
you were satisfied, and you blessed. We learn from here that the only time you're obligated to make a blessing of Birkat Hamazon is when you're actually satisfied from what you ate. But if you're not satisfied from what you ate, you don't have to make a Birkat Hamazon. Then there's a piece of Talmud which says the following: Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yicholecha. And then it says Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The last verse means Hashem will show favoritism to you and bless you with peace. Says the Talmud, the angels come to Hashem and say, Hashem, you commanded all the judges in the world not to show favoritism. How can you show favoritism to the Jewish people? To which Hashem responds, a very cryptic teaching, which Kabbalistically to understand we can do it later, but I'm just going to share with you the teaching first. He says, you have to understand that the Jewish people receive favoritism because even when they eat just an olive's amount of bread or an egg's amount of bread, a small amount, and they're not satisfied, they still make the after blessing. That's why they're worthy of my favoritism. We see that there are two levels of Birkat Hamazon. One is a rabbinic Birkat Hamazon, which is if you eat more than a certain amount, you must make Birkat Hamazon, the after blessing. Whereas according to the Torah, only if you are satisfied. So what he's trying to do here is preempt your question of, well, what if I wasn't satisfied, then I'm really not obligated, so maybe a Shaar should take precedence, right? He's trying to get rid of that point. He's trying just to tell you, we're talking about a situation where he is satisfied, and according to the Torah, he's obligated to make an after blessing, yes.
You're saying that if you're not satisfied, it's just your reshut to do Birkat Hamazon? You don't have to?
Not a reshut. It's not just a choice.
So if you were to do it,
it's a rabbinic obligation.
Oh.
Meaning this would have ramifications. Remember, we mentioned what kind of person can say Birkat Hamazon for you.
Oh, then a katan.
Oh, I can say Birkat Hamazon for you. I mean, you can listen to what I'm saying and say Amen.
Right.
Can a lady say Birkat Hamazon for you? Well, then you'd have to go see, is a lady obligated in Birkat Hamazon from the Torah or only from the rabbis? Let's skip a lady for a moment. A child under the age of bar mitzvah must say Birkat Hamazon, but for which reason? A rabbinic reason, right? Which rabbinic mitzvah? Chinuch. What is chinuch?
Learning, so that when he is bar mitzvah, he'll know what to do.
Right, to educate him, so when he is bar mitzvah, he'll know what to do. So, can a child say Birkat Hamazon for you? No, because you're obligated from the Torah on a higher level than he's obligated in. And therefore he cannot fulfill your obligation for you. But what if you ate bread and you weren't satisfied? So you're also only obligated at a rabbinic level. Can he say Birkat Hamazon for you?
Yes.
Someone say yes, because now you're both obligated at a rabbinic level. Give me a reason for why he can't say Birkat Hamazon for you.
Different.
Say Avram, say.
It's a different law.
Right, very nice. It's a different obligation. He's obligated to say it for education, so that when he is older, he'll know how to say Birkat Hamazon. That's rabbinic. You're obligated for a rabbinic mitzvah, but for a different one. For the fact that when you eat an egg's amount of bread, you must make a Birkat Hamazon. So, could be that he's not obligated in the same mitzvah you are, in which case he would not be able to make a Birkat Hamazon. I want to, by the way, share with you a teaching. This teaching is attributed to, we're not sure who. Some say the Vilna Gaon, and some say Rav Meir Shapira of Lublin. By the way, one was Hasidic and one was the anti-Hasid. So, I'm happy that we attribute it to both sides of the coin, but whoever said it said something nice.
It's for convenience. Hasidim say that.
Oh, very good. Yeah. You know, they have such stories. They say, fill in your rabbi's name. Oh, that's right. Oh, I heard about this rabbi. Well, I heard about that rabbi. It's the kind of story you just fill in the blank. Whoever rabbi you want it to be about, you just tell the story about it. You know, like that story about the man who comes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, every day I come home and then my wife and I fight. He says, well, why do you fight? Well, because the house is not clean and the dishes are dirty and she's not doing. So what should I do, Rabbi? What Tehillim should I say? What chapter of Tehillim should I say to make things better at home? He said, you should take a broom. Yeah, that's going to make things better at home. Now, I've heard that story told in the name of every rabbi who's ever lived under the sun. So, who said the story? I don't know who told the story, but it's a good story nonetheless. But it's hard to come for a rabbi.
Except it was dishes.
Well, how would the rabbi know? Maybe he doesn't do the dishes. So, I was telling you now about...
Why you should
Oh, why? Yes, very nice. Why? Very good. Thank you. There's a teaching, and it says, "Kehillat v'nisrael." There's a song that people sing in Shavuot. They probably sing it in your yeshiva. What? Kehillat v'nisrael. When the Jewish people are sitting and they're learning Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kollel pamal yadilei. He calls his heavenly court, his angels, his beings. He calls them and he says, "Chazu, chazu, come look. Banai, banai, my children, Chavivai, my beloved children. Mishtakchim mitzara dilei." They forget about their suffering, their problems, their needs, their bills that are due, their problems at home, their medical issues. And then they are mitaskim bechedvata dili, and they spend their effort and their energy focusing on that which makes me happy, not which makes them happy. I think of the song a lot when we read such pieces. Like, we're splitting hairs here. Are you obligated in the same rabbinic commandment that he's obligated in? But you have to imagine that Klal Yisrael, in the middle of inquisitions, in the middle of crusades, in the middle of Holocaust, in the middle of deals with, all kinds of enemies and things, we're sitting down and so what are we? Who's obligated and which bracha and which one do I make when I come out of the bathroom? Because that's what makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy. That's what makes the world a better place. And we believe in it, and we know it, and we've been doing this forever and ever and ever. We're going to keep doing it. And that dedication is we're another link in this chain. We're another group of people who are making this discussion at the forefront of Jewish life. Because, I'm going to be in our world dealing with Jewish issues. What are the Jewish issues? Well, we're dealing with graffitis on synagogues, and we're dealing with Israel advocacy on campus, and those are Jewish issues, but they're not at the forefront of Jewish issues. We have bigger issues that are facing the Jewish world. Those are nice things, those are noble causes, but when people say Tikkun Olam, we're going to fix the world, how are we going to Tikkun Olam? We're going to make sure that in Japan they do recycling also. Well, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to recycle everywhere. But it says L'taken Olam b'malchut Shaddai. It says that the word Tikkun Olam comes from let's fix the world by bringing Hashem as the king of the world. So the first part of Tikkun Olam is making Hashem the king of the world. And maybe before we get them recycling in Japan, we should talk to them about HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Japan. And they can recycle also while we're having this discussion. But the idea is that there are bigger issues facing Klal Yisrael. And learning Torah is one of them.
Is also another issue. How does a person know when they're really satisfied? The Rambam says that only a certain percent of your stomach should be filled with food in his Mishnah Torah, and a certain percentage with fluid, and then I think it's about 20 to 25% empty.
So how do you calculate?
So today, you get a sense, I think, if you really know your body well, you do get a sense of that. But
I think when a person has to know themselves.
Most people are like 104%.
Right.
I'm
stuffed. I'm ready to say Birkat Hamazon.
I sat with Rav Peretz once, and Rav Peretz was sitting with myself and one of my chavrutas. I don't want to mention them. And he asked my chavruta, we were learning the laws of food on Shabbat. He leans over the table and says, "What does your wife make for Shabbat?" What do you mean? He's like, "What kind of salad does she make on the table?" He's sitting with Rabbi Peretz, he's talking about your wife's salads. Like, you're not sure what's going on. You're taking a test to be a rabbi. He's talking to you. He says, "Well, she makes a red cabbage salad, a green cabbage salad. She makes a green leaf salad with tomatoes and one with mushrooms, and she makes an olive dip, and she makes hummus, and she puts out tchina, and she makes mabucha, and she whatever else, potatoes, all kinds of things she's making." And the Peretz's face looks like this. He said, "That's it?" No, Rabbi, it's only the first course. Then comes out the fish, then we bring the soup, then we bring the chicken, and if it's a nice Shabbat, then we have meat, and so then that's it. No, well, then there's dessert, so we have cake, and we have ice cream, fruits, and all kinds of things. and Rabbi Peretz looked at him, and he said, "Wow, Shlomo HaMelech would come to your house, and he wouldn't know what to do with your first course." He said, let alone with everything else you're serving. King Solomon would have been overwhelmed with the amount of food you're serving. And so we said, "Rabbi, what do you eat at your house?" The parents said, "My wife cooks like your wife." He said, "But every Shabbat," he said, "I take one potato, I take a spoonful of rice, and I'm done." During the week, Rav Peretz, when he came to New York, for example, I asked, "Rabbi, what should I get you to eat? What kind of food? What kind of..." He gave me some whole wheat bread with some olive oil. That's what I want. That's what the whole wheat. And I said, "Rabbi, are you fasting?" He says, "No, I eat my potato and I eat my rice. I can't eat any more." He said, sometimes I watch people eat at my table. I said, it's like their body's a never-ending pit. He said, it just goes in and in and in. He wonders when it's going to come out. He's a bit worried for some people for their safety at the Shabbat table. The truth is that what Zev is saying is true. The Rambam was very careful. Not just the Rambam, by the way.
Can we go that level?
Can you? The Halakha in Shulchan Aruch. Let's say you have Shabbat lunch and you need it right away to make Sudash and Sheet. You're not allowed to eat Sudash and Sheet right
You
away.
walk around the corner.
You have to more than walk in the corner. You have to reach a certain point where you're at least a little bit hungry. And Shulchan Aruch says that you won't be considered a gargaran, a glutton.
A glutton.
What kind of Jew would eat so many meals back to back?
Well, the other problem, from a health reason, the Rambam talks about this, is that if you eat food before the previous meal is digested, it rots in your stomach, literally.
So you will find a different rabbi suggesting that you leave a certain amount of your plate untouched. All kinds of things that the rabbis have suggested, but the culture of eating that exists today is not a good culture. I'm speaking about myself as well, but at our own Shabbat tables. I'll tell you, for the last 2 years back, we have Friday night dinner. I normally eat the fish course and some soup. And normally this Shabbatot in the winter when we're eating very early. So I have a long night that we sit around the table and we talk. And I always ask my wife to put a piece of chicken or something on the side. And I eat it maybe 2 hours or 3 hours later. Because at this point in time, I had just had fish. I just had soup. I'm eating more than I ever eat during the week. I'm already to capacity. To now have another course, it's okay, we serve it, that's what Jews do, but I personally, for my own well-being, I can't do it. I sit at the table and I can't move and I can't talk and I can't... What's the Oneg Shabbat in that? Every person has to know themselves. I had a friend, when we used to go out for dinner in a restaurant, he always ordered 3 main courses.
Oh. 3 main courses.
You know, I look at me, but 3 main courses only after he ordered some appetizers for the table.
That happens with
Who paid his bill?
He paid his bill. His mother paid his bill. But I would always say, we didn't come from a stingy home, but you choose one thing and you eat it. This guy took these 3 things and I'll take one to go. Always at the end of the meal. I'll take another thing to go. And it could be, the guy maybe has a real eating problem. It could be, but...
His mezuzah doesn't have
but a person has to be careful. So, we're talking here about a person who's satisfied. B'berkat hamazon, but a good kind of satisfied.
I heard that story once.
Yivarech berkat hamazon tchila. You should say berkat hamazon first. V'achar kach yivarech berkat asher yatzar, and only afterwards you should say asher yatzar. What just happened, guys?
He switched it
That's
around.
the opposite.
The order just switched.
Oi.
We're in trouble now.
Umikol makom, but in any case, im choshesh, if he's worried, shema yishkach levarech asher yatzar cha berkat hamazon, maybe you won't remember to say asher yatzar after berkat hamazon. Kol yikdim berkat asher yatzar berkat hamazon. You should make the blessing on the bathroom and then the one on the food. If you're afraid, you're going to forget.
Well, that's the first example.
Very nice. And so look at the next halakha. V'chein machal kazayit v'chebetzah pat. If you only eat an olive or an egg's amount of bread, v'lo sava, and you are not satisfied, Moshe Chaim, what should be the halakha according to you?
If you're not satisfied,
And there you're only obligated to rabbinic. Very nice. Yakdim berkat asher yatzar berkat hamazon. You should first say asher yatzar and then berkat hamazon.
What's now making berkat hamazon more?
Repeat after me, Moshe Chaim.
It's not rabbinic.
Alright.
What
Moshe Chaim.
the olive's worth.
Say Baruch.
because they
Baruch.
Baruch
Shekivanti.
Shekivan.
Say, blessed is he that let me figure out what the halakha is without knowing.
If
This
they're
is
both
the-
derabbanan at that point, what's pushing on it?
Because it's very clear when it's mina Torah,
Well, they're both-
that's going to take precedence over a rabbinic mitzvah.
I know, I'm saying
But
at the point where you're not full.
Then they're
Yeah.
both rabbinical.
So what's making a sure?
Because it's like the original rule.
Come
no?
on.
The action that you perform, you do that first.
So it's basically saying is, it really doesn't matter which is first, as long as you remember to say both.
Well, that's obvious because, by the way, going back to the Rabbeinu Avram's 2 paths, the pious path is which one comes first, which one doesn't come first. Everyone has to make both blessings. So obviously, if by being pious and making one blessing first, you're going to forget the second one, it's better to just say both in any order. But that's not what the halakha exactly is. Here on the footnotes of the Shulchan Aruch, there's a rabbi called Rabbi Akiva Eger. Rabbi Akiva Eger writes in his footnotes here that this is dependent on the argument. We know that tadir v'sheino tadir, tadir kodim. That which is more common and less common, the one that's more common comes first. But what if one is more common, but the other one is holier? Does commonness take... Commonness, is that a word? Commonality? Commonality?
I think that's fair. So the most common?
Yeah, does the one which is most common, very good, thank you, take precedence over the one which is more holy? Or does the one which is more holy... I mean, we know that in the equation where you have more common, less common, the one that takes precedence is more common. What happens if in this equation I add in more common but less holy, less common but more holy? I'm adding in the holiness equation.
So how you measure holiness?
Biblical versus rabbinic. Yeah?
So what do we? Let's say, for example, in Yom Kippur, do we say Shabbat before Yom Zikaron?
That's a very interesting...
Because Yom Zikaron is the only holiday that I think that's higher than Shabbat per se.
Hey, we would now go fasting.
I think we say
Shabbat's
Shabbat before Yom Zikaron.
Yeah, we're
Yom
always
Kippur is
fasting.
Yom Kippur
It's a good question. It's a good question.
No, we're fasting. What
Yom
is
Kippur
Is before?
No, but sometimes...
Have
I don't have a Yom Kippur Machzor here. After, if you have a Yom Kippur Machzor at your house, look at it. Okay? And then get back to us,
Why
please.
do you say Birkat Hamazon if you're fasting?
Not Birkat Hamazon. In the Shemona Esrei, you have... Yeah. Moshe Chaim's worried. You're like, what, you guys eat on Yom Kippur? It's bad enough you guys make a blessing before you wash your hands, but you're also eating on Yom Kippur? What is this?
Wait, but
That brings us back to Rabbi.
The Berditch of a rabbi.
at the point we're going to say Tadir and smoking gun.
So do you want to know the Jewish answer to this question? Oh, the guy who's smoking on Shabbat is eating on Shabbat.
Well, you shouldn't even be able
But there are people who eat on Yom Kippur. You know, the big question is, do they make Kiddush or not?
But when someone's...
For example, somebody who didn't fast on Tisha B'Av this year,
Because of medical reasons.
for medical reason, would have had to say Havdalah with a cup of wine on Saturday night, not on Sunday night like we
They
did.
have to see Nachem.
Yeah, I have this email
These
from
are all-
Rafa, what's this?
I sent it out also this year. I sent Halakha Yomit, sent out this email.
Yeah.
This is an interesting point. So,
Yeah, there is, they're talking about
right.
the ones who...
Yeah, there's a
doesn't
famous
fast.
Holocaust rabbi that told everyone that they have to eat on Yom Kippur for their own health, and he set the example and took the first glass of wine himself, and then made kiddush on it.
I have the handwritten Birkat HaMazon that he wrote for Yom Kippur.
The actual handwritten or the copy?
It's a copy. No, I don't have obviously the real one, but I have the copy. Okay, I should be correct. No, I have the copy of the handwritten Birkat HaMazon. He wrote a special prayer in the Birkat HaMazon, like, Hashem, we're sorry that we're eating, but we're doing this to save the Jewish people. It's a very interesting tefillah that went along with it.
With Tadir and Mekudah, shouldn't you be able to do either one first?
Well, each side would have a good reason to push their argument. I'll just leave it off at this. Rabbi Akiva Eger says this is an argument. Some rabbis say holiness takes precedence. Some rabbis says commonality takes precedence. You can go break your head, but for right now, the halakha is the Torah obligation will take precedence over Asher Yitzhak. That is what we see. So what we see from this halakha, that it seems to be that which is holier takes precedence over that which is less holy. And you should know, on a philosophical level, it's a good thing to always put those things which are holy first. The Baal Shem Tov. Someone said to me recently, like, you're so anti-Hasidic. You ever been to a class of mine? Like, the Baal Shem Tov writes, before Shacharit, every word that a person says takes away from their tefillah's holiness. Every word a person says. Because you're putting your mundane before that which your holiness is. You know, in most Jewish schools, the way it should be, not like the way I went to school here in San Diego. Most Jewish schools, the first half of the day is always Judaic studies. And the second half of the day is entirely secular studies. The reason is to knock into your head, well, obviously we study both. But this one takes precedence. This one is more important than that one. Not like here where, you finish praying after 30 minutes and some of us go to Talmud class and some go to math class and then we switch. There's no such thing. There must be an order, a structure that you teach children that this is more important. I have a friend of mine. He was a rabbi, went into the world of the rabbinate, and realized it was very hard to support his children while being a rabbi. And he made a very painful decision, which was to leave the rabbinate and go get a job. But it wasn't that getting a job was a bad thing. It was he really liked being a rabbi, and it was hard for him, that transition, but he did it anyways. And today he's a very successful real estate agent. And he has on his license plate, you know the frame that goes around the license plate? It says on it, Torah. Remember Torah? It's what we call Torah. Torah is the Iker. What is the Iker?
The essence.
Torah is the main thing. And he teaches his kids all day long. You hear him out screams, Torah is the Iker, always screaming. We do whatever we do, but Torah is the most important thing we have in our life. And right, so everything is a part of your Torah. And maybe I can share with you. Sorry, I know I'm over time. One last letter. There was a rabbi who lived in New York. His name was Rav Hutner. Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner. Have you heard of his name?
Washington.
Rav Hutner wrote a book called The Pachad Yitzchak, The Fear of Yitzchak. A Musar book, a very tough Musar book. And one that I've never studied before. I'll tell you the truth, I don't own a copy of it. I was in a synagogue now, where they didn't have any books to learn, except for this one set of Pachad Yitzchak. I said, I'll take the Pachad Yitzchak, but when I started in the middle of the series, there was one last letter, the miscellaneous volume, just the random letters he wrote to different people. I love the miscellaneous volumes of any set of books you'll ever give me. So I took this down, and I was learning it on Shabbat, when I was in New York. There's a beautiful letter. One of his students wrote to him and said, Rabbi, I have to leave yeshiva to go get a job. And he said, and I'm feeling that I'm living a double life. I'm learning Torah, and I'm leading this very non-Torah life when I'm working. And it's ruining me, it's breaking me, and I'm wondering, should I just leave it all? What should I do? And Rav Hutner wrote back a beautiful letter that I wish we would print and put out in every yeshiva in the world. And Rav Hutner said, you're not leading a double life. You're leading a broader life. This is the word that he used. He wrote them in English, broader. English. He said, thank you.
Very.
He said, thank you. He said, he said, yeah, please. Rav Hutner said, you see, if you have a house and you add another room to your house, you don't now have a double house. You have a broader house, a bigger house. He said, it's true, if you buy another house and some of the week you live in one house and some of the week you live in another house, now you have a dual, two houses. You have two households. You have a summer home and a winter home. He said, but if you expand your current house, you are living in a broader house, not a dual house. He said, you have to understand, if you divorce your work ethic, your working life, your career from Torah values, you're living a dual life. He said, you have, in the morning, this is what I am, and at night, that's what I am. So, but if you realize that they're interwoven with each other, and you will be a better businessman if you are a better Jew, and you're a better Jew if you're a better businessman, and they complement each other, and you find that ground, he said, essentially what you've done is add another room to your house, and there's nothing bad about broadening your life. That's a good thing. And Rav Hutner said, the last paragraph said, Tzar li ma'od, it pains me very much that you had to wait until this age in your life to learn this concept. And I was blown away by that piece. Because how many of us have heard that before? The material world and the spiritual world, and your physical life and your spiritual life, and this duality comes from a very small mind. A greater mind will say it's a broader life. And I'm encouraging you. What?
Two sides, it's a Greek philosophy.
Right, it's compartmentalizing. Something as Rabbi Aaron always says, if you would go talk to the Kohen Gadol about spirituality, he wouldn't know what you're talking about. He didn't know this term spiritual. Our life was just wholeness. It was a whole life. It was a holiness, not H-O-L, but W-H-O-L. Right? Wholeness is a different world. That's what Judaism believes in. And therefore I'm asking, teach people this concept. Don't ever live a dual life. Live a broader life.